Okay, look, everyone, Eva isn't here to tell me that we're okay, so I'm hoping that this will continue recording the whole time. I'm nervous about my iCloud account. Anyway,
fingers crossed.
Welcome to this already chaotic experience where you have seen Eva on the show for 2 months ago now. You've seen Zandy on the show for the last month, and now it is time for new guests. And a majority of this month, at the very least, 3 of the 4 weeks, are going to be taken by storm by the Wine Crime Gals.
Woo!
They very lovely and very kindly volunteered to each take an episode, so we are starting with the lovely Kenyon.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We very much appreciate you being here and, trying to snag Christine's job. If you wanted to do an official permanent collaboration with him, that's what we
She has an adorable new baby. She's fine. She can handle it.
When this comes out, it will be, I think it'll be 2022. I think this comes out next year.
Oh,
finally, we're very ahead. It's not even Halloween yet, folks, over here. So
oh my God, I'm impressed. If we're 3 weeks ahead in recordings, we're like, we're so professional.
That happened one time when we were on tour, RIP. But we did it one time where we were ahead, like, I think we got to a month in 5 years. That was the best we'd ever prepared. Mm-hmm. And we felt so fancy. And now, technically, I guess we're prepared. But also, Christine and I should have recorded enough episodes in advance we didn't have to ask people to guest. So I don't know if it's prepared or not.
This is a cool, fun way. And you know what? You gotta live your values and give parental leave to folks. So I think it's great.
To anyone listening, nobody knows this because we haven't talked about it. But Christine had the audacity at one point to tell me, oh yeah, well, like, I had the baby, and like it was like 5 days after giving birth. She was like, just let me know whenever you want me to come back and record. And I was like, Christine, I was like, you sit your ass down. Like, we've got it handled. Eva and I have got people available. It's going to be fine. But of course, in Christine fashion, within like a week, she was itching to come back.
She's ready. It's like, are you still sitting on ice packs and like wearing a diaper? Can you just calm down?
I told her, I was like, the second that I create a family, like, do not expect to hear from me for 3 months. Like, at the very least. Like, I'm absolutely not working. So please don't make me feel bad in the future by working now. Like, just stay home. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we very much appreciate you. And then next week, we got another one of your buds on. So
nice.
How are you and why do you drink? Is there good or bad reason at all? I'm putting you on the spot here, but
you are putting me on the spot. I'm doing great. Lucy, Amanda, and the fourth gal, Scott, were recently visiting me here in Louisville, Kentucky, and so that was really fun. They were here last weekend, and we went to Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Was that your first time there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you like it?
I really liked it. I am a total baby about that stuff, so I thought that I was not going to be able to handle it, and they kind of dragged me to it because they were like, it's we call each other Meh, and so the weekend was called Halloween, and we were excited, and they were like, we have to do it, and I was like, okay.
Was it like a ghostly tour, or did you just take like a history tour of it, or what?
It was like their Halloween tour, so it was kind of like, I think they were packing in as many things as they could to like get as many tours through in the month of October as they could. So it was kind of a smash up of history and paranormal.
Fun.
It was cool. It was fun, and I handled it much better than I thought I would.
Okay.
It was exciting. And afterwards, Lucy took a bunch of photos because we were allowed to with no flash. And afterwards, I spotted a red ball in one of the hallways. And
no way.
That is one of the like stories that they have is like this ghost named Timmy that they've named Timmy who like plays with a ball in the hallways.
Oh, so creepy.
And I spotted one. So I don't know if they planted it there or not. But
I don't know. I do know there's there's one trick with green lights, but I've never heard of a red one actually doing that. So
No,
I know,
this was like a physical ball.
Shut the fuck up. Wait, I thought it was like a light this whole time.
No, a ball, a physical toy ball that was in the hallway. And it was on the second floor, and they didn't tell us that story until the third floor.
Oh, if that is planted, genius organization of the story so that you feel like you saw something original.
Right?
But like also that's just so scary. And also I love when buildings just randomly pick a name for their ghost, and it's something as sweet as Timmy when Timmy could be a demon, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like, Timmy sounds fun, but like, I'm not fucking with Timmy either.
Right. Timmy giving you a ball is actually in exchange for your soul, so.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then is there a reason why you drink at all? Is there a good or a bad thing that's happened this week for you?
You know, it's coming up on Halloween. We carved pumpkins, but then the squirrels demolished all of our pumpkins. So maybe that's why I drink. All my pumpkin carving work was for naught because they're just ruined.
I hear you. Well, are you doing anything specific for Halloween night? Are you dressing up as anything?
I have this. So for our live stream, I got a headdress that's supposed to be like Moira Rose from The Crows Have Eyes. And
yeah.
I'll probably just rehash that because it's my favorite thing ever to wear.
Very fun. We haven't figured out yet if we're dressing up or not. Every single year, I tell Allison she should dress up as the Scarlet Witch, and like one, because I am obsessed with Elizabeth Olsen, but two, because there's I think I might just have like lovey-dovey eyes, and maybe it's not true, but in my mind, Elizabeth Olsen and Allison actually have a lot of similar features, and so I kind of want to put her in the costume just to see how right I am, just to see how accurate, if you were to put them next to each other, it would look. So, and is
Allison good about like prepping a costume?
No, we've been together this is our fourth Halloween together. Scarlet Witch has been on my mind for at least half of that time, and nothing. But also, like, I just thrive under pressure, and so usually if I can't get a costume together in like 20 minutes, then I won't do it. Right. So if we do it, I want to do it right. I want to have like a whole cosplay experience with it. And I don't have the time, and I can't justify the money. So one day though. You have the
skills though to create.
Thank you. I have the skills for props, but when it comes to wardrobe, I can't do anything. There was actually a wardrobe person at the prop house that I worked at. And it was really weird. Everyone had so many skills at that company where you could basically bring in any unfinished task and someone would be able to do it for you during their lunch break. So like I had a shirt that I really liked with holes in it, and I was like, "Oh, can you patch this up?" And people would just trade skills for favors, and so the fact that I worked at a prop house and had to go to a seamstress on her lunch breaks for help tells me I probably can't put together a Halloween costume.
Well, my husband's going as Ted Lasso. Not super inventive, but he's also a middle school principal and like has to have that kind of energy at work. So it's going to be really good, and he's going to shave to just a mustache. So.
And do kids know which Ted Lasso is, or is that an adult show? I don't actually know Ted Lasso.
Kids definitely, middle schoolers definitely know Ted Lasso, so they are very excited.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, anyway, thank you for coming on. Do you have a story prepped, or is this all me?
I do have a story prepped. Do you want me to go first?
You are more than welcome to go first. Usually I do the paranormal first, but I
don't care.
Get to choose. Guests get
Your
to choose.
Show. You do it.
Okay, so this is, wow, I'm either about to really, well, neither way I'm going to earn brownie points now, but I could really damage our friendship here because I always confuse you and Lucy for which one lived in South Africa, and it was you, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. Okay, because I wanted to come up with a story for you, so this is a story in South Africa.
Woo!
Wow, it's gonna be so embarrassing. For a second, I also got freaked out that Lucy was coming on today versus you, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm really gonna fuck this up. So,
I used to get Eva and Allison mixed up and have little mini panic attacks about which one to reference.
you would not be the first or the millionth. I
Yeah.
get so many emails or so many DMs being like, "Oh my gosh, you and Eva look so cute," and I'm like, "Eva's not in that picture, girl." Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. Also, some people think that people get Allison and Christine confused, so they'll be like, "Oh, how's your co-host, and also how's your girlfriend Christine?" And it's so
Nope.
You're not alone. It happens all the time. So here is a story for you from Cape Town, which was that where you were, or Johannesburg?
We were in Johannesburg, but we got married outside of Cape Town and definitely visited Cape Town a bunch. Yeah.
Did you get married at the Castle of Good Hope?
No, but I've been there, and
okay.
I hiked up a bunch of stairs.
Oh, good. Well, this is what that story is. The Castle of Good Hope, and I did not know it had so many stairs, so thank you for already throwing a fun fact in. How many stairs do you know?
Oh, God,
Did it feel like 1,000?
It felt like endless, and my husband and his sister was, like, they were there, and they're both really athletic, and they were, like, miles ahead of me, and I was, like, huffing and puffing up those bad boys.
I just came back from Allison's family trip to Denver, and that whole family is just, like, I don't know if they're athletic or they're just like stubborn as shit and like think they're athletic and are willing to put in the work. But they wanted to go to like the Red Rocks Amphitheater, which is a bajillion stairs all the way up to like the clouds. So not only do you not feel good about yourself because you climbed a literal mountain, but now you can't breathe because of the elevation.
Yeah.
When I went with the family, I was like, damn, thank God I've been with Allison for long enough that I don't feel the need to impress them anymore. Because at one point I was like, I'm not going.
Yeah, I'm good. It's beautiful from here.
Right here feels awesome, and I'm not going to go any higher up. Thank you. So anyway, maybe if we ever go to Cape Town, I will avoid taking them to this place because the second they hear stairs, they seem to get real giddy. So. Okay, so it's in Cape Town, and apparently the Castle of Good Hope is the oldest existing colonial building left in South Africa. Fun fact. Another fun fact, it is apparently the, quote, the best preserved example of a 17th century architectural structure in the world.
Whoa, okay, did not know that.
So, it was built from 1666 to 1697. It was built as a ship supply station. And it was built originally by the merchant. It's spelled like Jan, but I'm wondering if that's John.
Probably Jan.
Jan.
Yeah, Jan. A lot of Dutch.
Yeah, I noticed that in this. There's a few things I had to look up how to pronounce. And this, by the way, wasn't one of them, obviously, since I can't figure it out. It was originally built by merchant Jan van Riebeek. And he was the first commander of the Cape. So he had the title of getting to build the first fortress here. So he built it out of clay and timber, which he knew at the time was not very secure. And it was very economically friendly. So it wasn't like a good fortress. And so he asked the rest of the Dutch East India Company that he worked for if he could get the funds to rebuild it. And if they didn't give him an answer for several years. They were just like, oh, our money is more important elsewhere, so don't worry about this. It was
kind of a backwater at that point. They hadn't quite ramped up the trade there yet. And I think it was really hard to sail around that cape. And so
it seems like it was like a little jutted out space or something like that. Is that
apparently
right?
They're like really bad storms. So it used to be called the Cape of Storms.
Oh.
And then they were like, fuck, nobody wants to sail here. We should probably change that. And so they changed it to Good Hope.
Well, of course, because you have to hope and pray that you'll get through the storm. So eventually the Dutch East India Company said yes, that they would refund the building of this castle. It wasn't really a castle yet. It was more of like I think one website kind of roasted the building, being like, we call it a permanent structure because it was there for a while, but like no one was going there.
This mound of mud and
of clay. It was just melting by the sea. Apparently, eventually, when England threatened war, they were like, oh, we need this as a fortress. So yeah, now we should pay to really get this thing built out of stone. So I guess you would know this already because you've been there, but it is pentagon-shaped. Fun fact to others. I did not know that until I looked at a picture of it and I was like, holy shit, that's a literal pentagon. And each of the 5 points are a different bastion, which I had to look up what a bastion was. Do you know what a bastion is?
It's one of those words where, like, you think you know it and you can, like, read it in context, but you don't actually know it.
That's what happened to me, because I was like, oh yeah, 5 bastions, dope. And then I kept reading more about the bastions, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, so, technically, what the fuck is that?
It's apparently an additional piece of, it's an additional surrounding fortress. It's like just extra protection. So on each 5 corners, there's more of a jutted out piece of building that was, I guess, supposed to be additionally strong to the rest of the building in case, soldiers tried to attack or bad guys show up. At least the joists are solid. So so it's just a stronger fortress, more fortress. And they actually jut out of the 5 points, and each of them are named after different titles that William III had. So he was also known as William the Silent, fun fact. And he was born into the house of, you know how they would say, like, the regal shit of, like, William III, Prince of blank, Duke of blah. Each of those locations is one of the bastions' names.
Oh, okay.
So apparently he had even more titles than 5, but they just picked 5 of them. So he was born into the house of Nassau, which is one of them. He was the Prince of Orange. He was the Count of Buren, the Count of Leerdam, and the Count of Katzelnellenbogen. So
one of those is not like the other.
I was like, can't we just call that Cats or like the Kitty Tower or something?
The old Boga
The Katzelnellenbogen. And I was like, you were already the count of so many, and you just had to throw a real wrench in the that poor man who has to announce you by scroll has to say that every time. So anyway, so those are the 5 names of the towers. And then through it, which is interesting, I wonder if it has any relation to Katzelnellenbogen, is that if you were to look at this building or this castle from an aerial view, it's basically like a pentagon perimeter, and then the rest of it is hollow on the inside. So it's not a solid pentagon building. It's just the exterior walls of the pentagon, and then inside of it is a very long, narrow building. Okay. And it connects to either side of the pentagon. And this strip is called the Cats, or the Cat Building or something. So I wonder if there's any relationship there. Anyway, back to more of the history. In 1684, a bell tower was built, and the bell is from the 1600s. It's still there, although it has been bricked up, which we will talk about.
Ooh, that sounds spooky.
It got bricked up because in the 1700s, a soldier or a guard who was there actually hanged himself by the bell rope. And I guess that was enough dark history for that bell, and they bricked it up. So it's
Whoa, that is spooky.
It's been behind walls for over 300 years, I guess. And so then in the late 1800s, early 1900s, during the Second Boer War, Boer?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Boer. Mm-hmm.
Boer War. The castle became a military fortress, but it also held a lot of prisoners of war. So this is where it gets dark. Fun fact before I get into the dark part. Wow, this, by the way, is just filled with fun facts. I usually don't have this many.
I love a fun fact. I'm a huge history nerd, so this is great.
So apparently one of the prisoners of war, like the sad stories, it's probably because the conditions were so fucking terrible and maybe he just wanted to escape jail, but maybe it's because the conditions were horrible. But he is one of like the only guys I've ever heard of in history that actually, like a cartoon, dug himself out of jail with a spoon. I was like, wow.
He Shawshanked himself out of there?
He Shawshanked himself out. Oh,
wow.
But almost, because apparently there was like a foot left of wall he needed to get through, or, a very small portion compared to what he'd already done. And right as he was like, I guess, hitting the exterior wall, one of the stones that was holding up the wall, he knocked it loose and it fell on him and crushed him.
No.
He was so close.
Oh my God.
That's
so heartbreaking. That's tough.
That's, rough.
That's
rough.
You're not meant to get out of here, buddy.
Yeah, that was somehow the universe saying, fuck you.
Yeah. Maybe he sucked. You know, maybe we shouldn't root for him.
You know what? That's a really good way to look at it. Maybe we should actually be happy that happened.
Right.
Okay.
It's not enough info.
Not enough context for me to actually know how I feel about it. I started happy and now I'm confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so the castle held prisoners of war because the castle had a lot of facilities to it, including a dungeon. And the dungeon tripled as a torture chamber and an execution site with gallows. So,
and you can tour it.
Yay! Isn't that the creepiest and worst thing?
Yep.
The torture chamber was apparently at the time called Donker Gat because it translates to dark hole.
Oh.
Yeah. And the cells were super cramped. There were no windows. So not only were you trapped down there, often they were chained to the walls, but there was no fucking light. So if you were down there for months, you got no light. There was no ventilation.
God.
And the castle was so close to water, like you said, that during high tide waves, anytime they would hit the castle, I guess there were still like cracks in the foundation or something where the water that would hit the building would actually go into the house and flood the dungeon.
Oh my God, and you're chained to the wall and the water's just rising.
Which means a lot of people drowned.
Oh.
And apparently it was kind of regular. There wasn't just one instance of people drowning by the water. It was known that if the tide was bad enough, the dungeon would apparently fill up at 3 feet per minute.
Oh my God, that's fast.
And so if you're chained to the wall, and also it's dark, you can't even see where the water is. You just have to feel it and just know that it's getting worse.
Oh my God.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I think my body would shut down. I think my body would just be like, nope.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what do you do? You're just like, well, this is it, you know? Terrible. So they would also be punished. Apparently, one of the tour guides said that if you were there for anything, you would be punished. I mean, even if there was like the slightest infraction, if they thought you did something wrong, they would punish you while you were locked up there. So they would have very unnecessary punishments for maybe you didn't even do something. Maybe you didn't even do the thing that caused it. The punishments included whippings, beatings, people got pierced with a stake, and dragged by horses, and sometimes dismembered.
Jesus Christ. I just... Ugh.
One source, this is just one solid form of torture, is that because it was so dark down there, if you were down there for days or weeks or whatever it was, they would then bring you upstairs blindfolded, and once you got outside, they would rip the blindfold off and force you to stare into the sun.
So, as I imagine you'd be blinded by doing that.
I don't know if you'd be officially permanently blinded, but you're certainly not helping your eyesight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how bad it would be, but it would feel like you were getting blinded, I imagine.
Yeah.
Also, like, just don't want to sidestep this. I don't know all of the history for it, but let's not forget that early on, these were also holding cells for chiefs of indigenous people. So throw a little racism in there.
Mm-hmm. And enslaved people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I do want to say, too, a lot of sources said that this building, when it was being redone for the war effort, or before war actually was declared, they said that it was built by soldiers and sailors, but I think during Jan's time, when he built the original one out of clay and stuff, I would bet enslaved people also were doing most of the building.
Very likely, yeah.
So apparently, I wanted to send you a picture. The door still exists from the dungeon. Here, the door still exists, and you can still see etchings from people on there. And it's really interesting. I'm texting it to you right now.
Oh, okay.
It's very sad. One of them says, "In this place, a man has been 5 months and more without a crime." But from just like an interesting perspective, look at that font that someone etched.
Whoa, that's fancy.
It looks like Harry Potter Hogwarts writing on the letter.
It looks like Tom Riddle.
Yeah, we'll put it on
this.
It does. We'll put it on our Instagram for other people to see. But the fact that someone was able to etch in a font is kind of crazy.
That etching of that tortured soul in a dungeon is better than my best handwriting.
Yeah.
It's better than, like, the handwriting that I tried really hard to use for, like, my wedding thank yous.
Yeah. It looks like even I say it's a font because even like the H's have like the little shorter lines on top of the tall lines.
The T has like little it's
what I would consider unnecessary etchings into each letter, but like this person really took it seriously. So horrible history, by the way, but the penmanship was worth mentioning.
On the penmanship.
Yeah, it was a little. I saw it and I double took and I was like, someone had to have taken one big stamp and branded that into the door. So, but it also goes to show you if you were down there for 5 months, like you had nothing to do. But also, it was pitch black. Like, how did you do that in pitch? Anyway, I'm tangenting, but it was worth mentioning. So the castle also after it was a military fortress, after it held prisoners of war. Probably closer to our timeline, the castle is now being used as office space for early governors. It was used as office space for the South African Army at one point. Just miscellaneous government jobs. People seem to hold offices there. Mm-hmm. And there's still not a lot of history about the castle itself because new spaces are being discovered during restorations over and over again. So architects have said, like, there's a chance that, like, there are still bricked up rooms we know nothing about. They're still
finding hidden bells.
More hidden bells. They're still finding foundations to like churches and bakeries and stuff that used to be on the property. So I feel like every day the history is being updated. Mm-hmm. In 1936, it became a historical monument and is still, quote, the best preserved example of a Dutch East India Company fortress. Mm-hmm. It's now mainly it's a tourist attraction. It has it gives normal history tours on it, but it also has 2 museums in it. One of them is the Castle Military Museum, and the other is the William Fair Collection, which I guess the Military Museum, obviously military history of the Cape, but then the William Fair Collection is history of the people of the Cape.
Okay.
Very interesting. And the castle also hosts ceremonies for Cape regiments. So it's basically an all-around military tourist attraction or history tourist attraction.
Marching and salutes.
A lot of people in uniforms and I imagine swords or something. So here are the ghosts. In the dungeon and in the corridors, apparently the lights will turn on and off by themselves. I imagine the doors open and close on their own because that's just like textbook haunting.
Part of it.
And people hear voices, footsteps, murmuring, whispers, and screams. The bell that has been bricked up since the 1700s rings on its own. So we think it could be the man who died by suicide in there.
The bell is really getting to me. But, like, I love it. There's, like, a cask of Amontillado thing to it.
It reminds me of, like, the emo kid that sat alone at lunch. Like, there's so much to him, and yet I know nothing. Like, For the bell to be, it was cast in 1697, and for it to have only been around for a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden there's a death to it, and it's bricked up. I just see untapped potential. That it was,
because bells have got to be expensive. You'd think that they could melt that down and turn it into a cannonball or something.
It was 660 pounds.
Holy shit!
How did someone lift that onto original beams, which are still there, by the way? Like, how... That's history right there. And the fact that it just got bricked up is kind of crazy. And I feel like there's more to the history because, I mean, I feel like the world is pretty insensitive to suicide in general. And I feel like one death wouldn't have warranted
I don't think at the time that doesn't even, like, track.
Yeah.
They didn't give a shit about human life back then.
The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, by the way, has had like 15 suicides, and they're still running that shit, you know?
Now it's like an Airbnb.
Yeah, so now for there to be like this like massive bell that I'm pretty sure they like had sent in, and they had to have all these men work on it, and now how much money is it costing to brick the thing up? Like, it doesn't, I feel like there's something going on there that's dark and mysterious, a la Emo Child at the lunchroom.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the rest is, but...
If any listeners know specifically about the bell, get at us.
There's a mystere to it. I'm liking it. There's also, this is a weird one. There's a black dog that lunges at people and then vanishes into thin air.
Okay.
Which makes no sense to me because I heard no history about a black dog, but in, I guess, most lore, a black dog is an escort to hell. So usually if you see a black dog, it means like you are on your way to death.
Okay. Amanda has a black dog. Callie
Good.
is not a hellhound, decidedly. She's a very happy little girl.
Or she could have shown up in Amanda's life as a hellhound and was turned in the right direction, you know?
Right.
So there's also a tall, glowing man that is seen pacing the ramparts of the castle and then leaping off the building. And before he hits the ground, he vanishes in midair. Apparently, he was first seen in 1915, and he was seen like 30 years later in 1947 by some soldiers who were staying there. And they kept seeing this figure every 3 nights show up and look over, like was pacing. It would even look over the castle as if it was like gauging the fall. Mm-hmm. And then backing up and sprinting off of the castle and jumping off. And to figure out if it was a bored soldier playing a prank on everybody else, they actually had one guy mimic the actions in a sheet as a ghost. And then apparently the actual ghost did not like that, and the next time they saw him, he was hovering over them, and the bells in the guard room were ringing.
Oh, don't make fun of me, bitches.
Yeah, also, like, don't, like, disrespect the way, like, I went out. Like, don't make a joke out of this. So, and around the guards area, not only is the bell heard, but people have heard a man and a woman arguing, and that's apparently a very common one. I've also heard that not only would you hear them arguing, but if you turn the corner to see what was going on, there would be a black mass there. Gross. Okay. In 1952, this is the most wild thing I've ever heard, there was a couple who was given permission to stay the night in the castle, and they woke up in the middle of the night to a military corporal in their room running around and screaming at them to wake up.
Oh, no.
They, thinking it was a real person because it was like a solid man who was walking around, and no one else ever gets to stay the night, so they thought maybe it was a guard or something.
Yeah. They were like, we have permission.
They were like, it's okay. They said, oh, why do we have to get up? What's going on? And the man turned and looked at them and said people were rioting in the street and they need to get out. So it's like intelligently responding to them. The couple gets out of bed, they pack up all their stuff, they leave, and when they get outside to see masses of people rioting in the streets, nobody is out there, and the corporal has vanished.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a no.
I don't know how Kenyon. That's a no from me, dog. I just can't handle this stuff. No way I'd get away. I don't know how anyone can spend the night in a haunted anything.
I've done it and I've regretted it. So yeah. There have been places I've had to leave in the middle of the night just because it was too freaky. So that one is particularly weird to me. It always freaks me out when people have a conversation with the dead, because there's intelligent hauntings and there's residual hauntings, where residual hauntings are just repeating actions. That's why you'll see someone like walking from the kitchen to the couch and then they vanish, and that's all you ever see of them because they're just repeating something on loop from their past. But intelligent hauntings freak me the fuck out because it's like,
what else can they do?
Yeah, what else can they do? Do they know that they're dead?
What do they know? Yeah.
Do they know what era it is? I just did a story a couple weeks ago where there was it was ghosts in a hotel who were intelligently responding, but also when asked what year is it, they thought it was like 50 years before. So it's like only having partial knowledge of what's going on. It's very weird. It's very creepy. There's a ghost called the Lady in Gray who is seen running around all over the castle crying and holding her face in tears. We don't know what happened to her, but we do know in the 1940s, during some restorations, a female skeleton was found in the ground, and when they dug her up, that ghost has not been seen since.
Oh, okay. So presumably she got a different burial away from that place. Okay.
Yep. One of the last people to see her was actually the royal family at the time, who was on a tour. And I guess Princess Margaret, she saw this ghost, apparently. She was one of many.
Love that for Princess Margaret.
I feel like I don't know anything about Margs, but I hope,
she was
Miss
a bit of a
Maggie's
drama
doing good.
queen. So I
Was
feel like,
she?
so I feel like it's great that she spotted that.
That's fun. I bet she saw like a woman crying down the hall and was like, that's where I need to be. I want to know what's going on. So, they were one of the last people to see the ghost. My favorite character in here is Lady Anne Bernard, who lived here in the late 1700s. She moved in with her husband when she was 40 and he was 28. Good Lady Anne. Go
Nice.
Lady Anne.
Love it.
She loved swimming in the nude. And apparently she... and she was also... is still thanked for the fact that she documented everything in her life. She had really intense journal entries. She was a drawer, an artist, so she drew pictures that actually have helped historians later figure out what used to be on the property during restorations.
Yeah, I feel like I need to start a diary. I used to keep one when I was younger, and then I just haven't in many, many years. But, like, I feel like I need to get into it.
Anytime I've left... anytime I've started a diary, at the end I've been like, wow, this feels really good, but I just can't keep up with it every day.
Right.
But there's nothing I appreciate more than the people who were able to find time and do that.
Right.
The fact that, like, one of my mom's exes, like, when I met him, one of the coolest things about him was his mom had journaled every single day, and you could read like, oh, and I'm going down to the diner and I'm hanging out with the old gang and I drank this and I ate this, and it's like,
it's
damn,
so
all the way
cool.
down to what you ate. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And the fact that there's also drawings that were like good enough that historians use it now, and she probably just drew them for herself. It's just bananas. And so she ended up helping herself out in the afterlife, because she loved what was called the dolphin pool. It was the pool on the property. She loved diving in it naked. That was like her favorite thing to do. And apparently at the time...
She sounds like a hoot.
She sounds very cool. I'm really hoping she didn't like own enslaved people or something horrible that makes us disrespect her.
Yeah.
But from what I know, the only thing I found on any sources were this naked story. People love talking about this naked story, where she would dive into the pool every day, and I guess one of the officers was really offended by the fact that she was always naked, because I guess there was a difference between the woman here versus like the Victorian women in England, and like one was very posh and others loved being naked. I saw in one source at one point there was a trend where people wore ball gowns that exposed their breasts.
Oh.
Did you?
In South Africa specifically? Or just in the time period?
I think in the time period. I don't know of the location, but I do want to deep dive that eventually.
I mean, there are a lot of like portraits, and I don't know from what era, but there are a lot of like portraits and galleries, but I think it's from like the 16th century maybe, where there's like one titty out.
Well, look, if you needed something to really distract yourself with all day, everyone, let's all do a weird Google search where we look up...
One titty out history.
The CEO at Google is going to be like, why is everyone looking this up?
We get it trending on Twitter. One titty out history.
Apparently some people were from the other region where they knew of like more posh women where they wouldn't be nude all the time, or they wouldn't be so proud of it. And so he actually demanded that people build in a staircase for her in the pool, so that way she had to walk into the pool instead of dive into it. That way she wasn't just like unladylike flailing around in the sky before she hit the water.
Mind your own goddamn business, man.
I know. You can't, you've got a castle to watch. You can't do anything else with your time. So apparently she loved this pool, wrote about it, drew about it, and at one point it went away. But when they were looking up during restorations, when they were digging up the ground, they found the foundations of the original pool and were able to look at her pictures and find out what it looked like, and they have now restored it. And ever since, people see her ghost at the pool. Naked, I don't know, but they at least see her there.
I want a skinny dip for all eternity. That sounds fun.
And when you finally clothe yourself, make sure there's no top to it. No top to the dress.
Titties out. I mean, I already hate wearing bras, so.
She apparently also she was a huge socialite. She loved entertaining guests. And so now when there are important people visiting the castle, her ghost is more likely to be seen. And she's usually seen in a big ball gown in the area that she actually converted into a ballroom.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's Lady Anne Bernard. Also, if you live in the area and her drawings are of interest to you, some of them are on display at the Vineyard Hotel, which, by the way, the Vineyard Hotel, after she lived in the castle, because she was like the colony's like first lady or something, so that's why she lived there, but then eventually had to move out. Oh, eventually she moved to where the Vineyard Hotel is now, so it's sitting on her old property.
Okay.
So I guess that's why they let her drawings now stay there, so it's still technically with her. And one of her drawings, by the way, or one of her paintings that she had was of peacocks, and it was for a long time over the mantle in the castle above the fireplace. And they say it's allegedly cursed that if anyone were to move it, you would die. And they think it's because, I guess, peacocks are a symbol of danger, which is interesting. Because they are symbols of the goddess Juno, which I guess if you like fuck with her, you die. Like, there's no way. She seems like a really dangerous person to piss off.
Peacocks are pretty intense when you like see them in person.
So where was it? It must have been like, I don't know where the location. We were on tour and we went to an area. I think it was Maine or Vermont. Someone had a public peacock petting zoo where they were not behind fences or anything. You would just walk into this area and there were just peacocks available, just rubbing up on your leg, and like you can feed them if you want. It was the scariest decision I'd ever made for myself, because I was like, at any moment, no one's even going to help me because I walked onto their turf. So it was getting so close to one, I decided they freak me out. But I had to find out once I was there.
Ostriches are also really freaky, and there are a lot of like ostrich farms in South Africa. And one time, Zach and I like planned an entire road trip where one of the full stops, we were supposed to stop for 2 nights in this little town in the middle of nowhere that's the ostrich capital of the world. And you can like visit the farms and all this shit. What? And then we got there and like we saw a bunch of ostriches just from the car, and we were like, oh, they're really big and scary and really gross, and they like peck at each other, and so they're all missing like tufts of feathers, and like we just were like, no. And we didn't go to a single one.
If they've already got like battle scars, maybe just like don't come. They already have some trauma that you don't need to get face to face with them to find out about.
They're huge. We got the fuck out of there.
How big are they?
They're really big. They're way taller than a human.
Ugh. Well, that's all I need. As long as if it's bigger than me, I'm out. So
yeah,
it could be 10 feet or 100 feet. I'm equally disinterested.
And like you can't, because they're like essentially dinosaur aliens. So like you can't like gauge what they're thinking at all. You know,
like they just snap at any minute.
Yeah, you look at them and you don't know from their eyes what their plan is.
There's some TikToker who's gotten kind of famous where I think she runs an ostrich farm, and there's one literally named Karen. There's an ostrich named Karen who's like a real piece of work. And I guess anytime they're filming, you can see like Karen behind the girl, and Karen will bull rush her. And I don't know what kind of confidence this trainer or this animal owner has, but she'll just like get in Karen's face and be like, back the fuck up, and then Karen listens. But like
Karen would not listen to me. Let me tell
Karen
you.
would be like, who do you think you are on my grounds? Absolutely not. Anyway, every time I see that, I feel like the videos are supposed to make me laugh, but instead I just go like I feel like I'm about to witness a murder. You know?
Yeah, so, they're really scary and aggressive. No thanks.
Yeah. So apparently these peacocks in the painting are it's a cursed picture, and so the one lore is that if you touch it, you will at least be harmed or you will die. Another lore is that the reason it's cursed is because this painting is actually hiding a treasure behind it. Another is that there's a secret passageway to the bowels of the castle behind this painting.
Huh. Interesting.
I would like it to be all three.
Yeah.
So then there's probably one of the more famous ghosts. There's the ghost of Governor Peter Gitsbert van Noot.
That
crazy.
Sounds good to me.
Crazy name.
There's no way to newt.
And apparently nobody liked him. He's a real piece of shit governor and very militant. And in 1728 or 1729, I saw different sources for that, he sentenced 7 men to death and at the castle. And I think he even like refused their final wishes. And right before he was killed, one of the prisoners cursed him. And later that exact day that he was cursed, the government was allegedly found in his office dead of a heart attack.
Oh, quick work.
And so, quick work, like, got the job done. And he was apparently found slumped over in his office chair, and that chair is now on display at the Koopmans de Wet Museum. So,
okay. Turns out there are a lot of museums in Cape Town that I did not know about.
Turns out there's a lot of museums with ghost-related items. If you see if you're at a museum and you happen to see a chair behind glass, just assume it's haunted.
Right.
There's also, speaking of chairs that are haunted at museums, the Zach Bagans Museum has a chair that they used to let people sit in, and then so many people needed corrective back surgery afterwards that they ended up having to like shut down the entire exhibit.
As somebody with chronic back pain, do not fuck with your back. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. Don't sit in a haunted chair. Don't go fucking skydiving or bungee jumping. Don't do it.
I don't even do anything, and I've thrown my back out so many times. And it's you don't realize how...
The pain is ungodly.
It's such a stupid thing to say, but you never realize how important your back is until you can't use it. And, like, there was one time, I don't even remember what happened. It was at Christine's house, and it was really bad, and I ended up going to a specialist for it, and they told me I had... I forget what the word is. It was like I splintered or I fractured my vertebrae, like a disc. Like I'd like split.
Herniated a disc?
No, that's what I assumed it was. But he said something that like I've fractured. It wasn't a fracture in my spine. It was something like equally scary sounding though. Yeah. And there was nothing I could do except wait it out. And I had to get like a doctor's note. I couldn't work for like 2 months. It was like, and because there would be moments where I was sitting up and all of a sudden my spine would just give the fuck out and all of a sudden I'd like fall over and there was no rhyme or reason to it. It would just be, it wasn't weak enough to hold up my body and I would just fall. And the pain, oh my God, backs.
You don't want to fuck with backs.
The second you throw out your back once, you appreciate your back for the rest of time. It's just, there's nothing like it. Especially when you throw out your back and you sneeze, good night.
Oh my God.
Good night. Take me out.
I threw it out so bad once that we lived on a 3rd floor apartment building and I couldn't get down the stairs to get to the ER or urgent care or something or the doctor to even like get medicine to treat it. So for 3 days I was just in my apartment totally stranded and I couldn't sit on the toilet because sitting is so painful. Mm-hmm. And so Zach had to, like, hold a cup for me while I, like...
I believe it.
Whatever. Did my business. Went. While, like, essentially... Basically make a bedpan for me. It was fucking horrible.
I believe it. There's truly nothing, like... I mean, go figure. It's your literal fucking spine. Like, but, like, I know we're saying obvious
Doctors
things here.
Are like, yeah.
I've been, there were times, I mean, there was one time I really fucked up my back when Christine and I have mentioned on the show a few times, but when, like, one of Christine's earliest memories of me is when we first moved out to Los Angeles. In the same week, I had broken up with my long-term girlfriend. I had salmonella, and I had gotten in 3 car accidents all in the same week.
Fuck? Were you driving?
I was driving. One of them was my fault. 2 of them, it's just LA, and I was new to the city, so I didn't know how stupid people drive. And so I got, like, hit from the back and pushed into another car. Someone sideswiped me. It was, Jesus. But the amount of whiplash I had was so bad. And I couldn't even, first of all, with a bad back, couldn't climb into the car to go to a chiropractor. But also I couldn't get in the car because the door had been torn off. So, like, there was nothing I could do. It was also when I was working at The Price is Right, so I distinctly remember Drew Carey watching me with a broken back in my broken car, trying to get out for my free $0 internship to work for him.
And was Drew Carey like, here's a patio set?
He gave me a glow-in-the-dark toilet seat. He was like, this'll help.
Oh, no.
Anyway.
Yeah, stuff.
Back stuff is not good, folks.
Yeah.
So anyway, that all came from the fact that, like, his haunted chair is at a museum. So people can still feel his presence. Apparently it's super dark, it's super intimidating, and they can hear him cussing from his old office. And one source said that his ghost likes to tear out plaster from the ceiling, which is so specific.
That would be me as a ghost. Just, like, sitting alone, cussing, and, like, picking at stuff. Like, I just always, like, I'm always doing something.
Like, it's like, everyone else is renovating the place, I might as well contribute.
Yeah.
Like, just rip
home
the place
decor
apart.
and swearing. And bad backs.
I do think if I were to fall over tonight and people saw my ghost tomorrow, I would still be in the middle of, like, a midnight crazed project that makes no sense to anyone else. I just did something, when people hear this, it was months ago, but for Allison's birthday, I made her a big, like, 4 foot by 4 foot, the number 30 out of poster board, but I also, like, did a bunch of fairy lights in it, and it looks like a 3D. It doesn't look like it's made out of paper. It looks pretty cool, and for making it in the middle of the night, I'm pretty proud of it. But as I was making it, I was like, I feel like Buddy the Elf when just in the middle of the night he just, like, made a rocking horse because he couldn't go to bed, and I'm like, I feel like that's just perfect.
That's very apt.
It's like the perfect like description of, like, ADHD is, like, if someone were to walk into the room in the middle of the night and be like, what are you doing? Whatever I had to say would not give it logic. I'd be like, I'm making a 30 out of posters. You'll understand later. Like,
it's going to look really cool.
It's just crazed. So anyway, that would probably be me. I understand his tearing up plaster. Maybe he just has trouble sleeping at night. He also haunts a nearby house called the Rustenvoogd, which... I don't know if I'm saying that right, but apparently it's the most haunted house in South Africa, and I found that out after I did all these notes, so I was like, motherfucker. So apparently there's a legend that there's a secret passageway between that building and the castle itself, and so people regularly have seen ghosts that I've been mentioning in this story. They are all also seen at the Rustenvoogds. So that's why they think there must be a secret passageway and the ghosts are traveling through the tunnels between each building.
Or maybe it's just a spectral tunnel.
Oh, I like how you said that. I love a good spectral tunnel. Apparently, also fun fact, if you care about the Penkridge Parish Church, the iron gates from there were originally from Rustenvoogd. So,
okay.
People that guard the building at night and have to do, like, the graveyard shift are fucking terrified of the castle. They avoid walking through the halls. They just walk the perimeter, which feels like you're half-assing the job as a guard, because now I know in an Ocean's 11 heist I can just break into the halls and no one will find me.
Right. It feels like you shouldn't let people know that, even if that is the case, but okay.
Yeah, it's like, just pretend you're doing your job. Mm-hmm. One of the guards, named Guard Frederick, says that he hated the graveyard shift because of creepy stuff that would happen there. Apparently, near the dungeon, people hear screams for help. People feel cold spots, and they sense a dark force luring them into the area, and that's particularly why they hate the dungeon, because they feel like they're getting dragged in.
Oh, I don't want to be lured into a dungeon. No.
At all. There's another guard named Guard Frantz, who once walked into a room and on the other end of the room saw a black shadow figure waving at him. No. That's a lot like the guy screaming at them to get up. It's like, I don't want you to feel so confident that you're openly telling me you see me like I see you. You know?
If you had to pick to be haunted by one of the ghosts one of the aforementioned ghosts, which one would you pick?
The one that tears up plaster, maybe. Or
plaster guy.
A plaster guy, or maybe the bell ringing. I can be fine with the bell. I I'm not loving any of these confident, waving, waking you up at night. Fuck that. Like, I need sleep.
I kind of like the corporal. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
I kind of like the delusion of, like, there are riots in the street, and it brings you back to, like, such a specific time period. I kind of dig it.
You know, actually, what I would do, I like the Lady Anne Bernard, the naked lady in the pool.
Yeah, of course. How could we forget?
Like a blast. She
Right.
seems like a blast. There was a story I recently did, I think of the same hotel I mentioned earlier. There was a ghost who came through during a seance her name was Catherine, and she was just looking for someone to party with. And I was like, that's the kind of ghost I need.
Yeah.
She apparently pointed at someone at the seance and went, "You look like you know how to have a good time," and then just like faded away.
Fuck yeah.
One of the former caretakers of the building says that he has, quote, "felt a heaviness on my chest and my body felt as if it was tied up. I couldn't move and eventually I struggled free, kicking and screaming, and ran out of the room. I stayed awake until sunrise."
Yeah. No.
And then finally there was an education officer, which I don't know what that means, but he says, quote, "There is definitely a presence. You are definitely not alone. You are being watched."
Maybe like a tour guide. Maybe that's what that is.
Maybe that's, pick your own title, and it was just fancy tour guide. So now I'm just going to end on this last piece where I think it's very sweet and very important that the current CEO, named Calvin Gilfellen, the CEO of the castle, he's doing his best to better respect and represent the people of the Cape that in this history were harmed by colonizers in the castle's history. And so he took down all of the pictures of the former commanding officers who did wrong by others in history, and he replaced them with more accurate historical figures of South Africa. This is a quote from Gilfellen. Oh, here it is. "If you look at the main courtyard, you'll see that there are 4 statues in front of the space, which arguably symbolizes the strength of colonial power. What we've selected to do is counter the power represented in that space, and we've put up statues of 4 prominent figures who fought colonial rule."
Mm-hmm.
The 4 that have been chosen, I tried looking up pronunciations online, and some of them I just was not finding, so I am so sorry if I mispronounce these. But the 4 that were chosen, they were each leaders of different communities. So there was one Khoikhoi leader, one Zulu leader, one Halubi leader, and one Pedi leader.
Okay.
PEDI. Okay.
Yep. So a lot of those are still ethnic groups within South Africa, and each have their own languages and own history and interesting alliances and cultures. Yeah, very interesting.
So I think the Khoikhoi chief that was the Khoikhoi leader that was selected was a chief named Doman, who led the first War of Independence by indigenous folks in South Africa. Another one was the Zulu king named Setshwayo, who was a prisoner at the castle after his men died fighting the British. The Halubi one is the chief named Longalabalele, and he was forced into war by white colonizers. And then the 4th one was for Pedi, which was the king named Sekukun, and he was also a prisoner there and forced into war by white colonizers. So they're doing their best to better represent the castle's history and giving them their space. And yeah, I just think that's super important.
I love that.
Way to go to that CEO, and that is the story of the Castle of Good Hope.
Wow, I learned so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry that was a little longer than I expected, but we had some good tangents there talking about our backs. You know,
we're so old. I know. And another thing about backs. No. Oh my God, so good. All right, well that was awesome. Well done.
Thank you, and also thank you for preparing a story too. I know I asked you guys to, but honestly, if you said "fuck you," we're already like coming on to listen to your story, I would have been like, I totally get it. So it's nice that you went out of your way and are sacrificing material to bring onto our show, because I know the fear of that.
I'm happy to do it, and came across this story recently and had never heard about it, And it is a really good fit, I think, and that's why we drink. So I was excited to cover it. So should I launch right into it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So I decided to go big or go home for this episode. And like I said, really tried to embody the spirit of your show. And so my case combines true crime and the paranormal.
Shut up! Okay. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
And there's actually, randomly, because we didn't, talk about what cases we were going to cover before this, but there's, a weird amount of overlap between the case that you covered today and my case. Yeah.
No way. Is it about haunted backs or bells? Which one is it?
No bells, but it's like a haunted, old-timey jail.
Fun! Okay, yeah. I'm ready.
Okay, so I will be covering the Old Charleston Jail and one of its most infamous inhabitants, Lavinia Fisher, who some believe...
Okay, great.
Have you covered this? No, right?
I don't think I've covered it, but I do know Lavinia Fisher. I watched the Ghost Adventures episode on this for sure.
Okay. So some believe that Lavinia was America's first female serial killer. # probably not, but we're going to go with it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I recently visited Charleston with Zach on vacation 2 weeks ago, and we took a tour that featured the outside of the Old Charleston Jail, because right now it's closed and they're probably going to be converting it into office space.
Oh, okay, cool.
But whatever, it's a crazy old building. I have a bunch of photos, but it might be easier if you just do a quick Googs to see the outside of the building.
Love a good Googs. Okay. Old Charleston Jail.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that is foreboding.
Right? Okay.
Yowza. Wow, every picture's worse than the last. That's pretty grim. Okay.
It's really grim and scary. So.
They're not even trying to hide it. That's going to be office space? Can you imagine, bringing your spouse lunch at that building? Oh my God.
And we will get to it, and it's just a crazy use for that building. But.
Okay.
I don't know. So. The Old Charleston Jail is considered to be one of the most haunted sites in North America, which I think is the sentence that every single haunted place uses.
Yes, that's why I always say either allegedly or I quote it, because I'm like, who the fuck knows at this point what actually is the most haunted, you know?
It is believed to be plagued by the ghosts of the many, many inmates who perished there. The plot of land where the jail would eventually be built was originally parceled out and set aside for public use by city planners in 1680. And for over 120 years, the site served various purposes, including a hospital, a poorhouse, and a workhouse for enslaved people. It wasn't until 1802 that the actual jail building that still stands today was erected. And like we said, the architecture is quite imposing. And it kind of somewhat resembles a medieval castle, don't you think?
It still does. It still kind of looks like that.
Right? And it has an arched facade over the front door, and then lots of small barred windows.
Yeah, it seems somehow, I mean, I'm still looking at the Google image of the front of it, but it seems very ornate for today's architecture. It definitely stands out. Yeah.
So the large 4-story stone building towered over most of the other structures of the period, and it also featured 2 octagonal towers at the front. So later on, the building would be expanded with a new Romanesque revival wing added in the back in order to house more sad souls within its walls. Conveniently located in the backyard of the prison was the city's gallows.
Oh boy, okay. So they could just immediately be sentenced to death right in their own backyard. Okay.
And these remained standing until well into the 20th century, when first some people tried to take it down because it was falling down, and then the city was like, no, that's history, you can't remove that.
Okay.
And so they had to leave up what remained of the gallows into I think the 1950s.
Jeez Louise.
And then a hurricane finally blew the thing down.
Oh, okay. That was God. That was
bye.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the backyard, within full view of the gallows, of the hangman's rope, stood an orphanage
What?
So, like, literally the backyard of the orphanage abuts the backyard of the prison, and, like, windows from the orphanage looked out directly onto the fucking gallows where people were being hung.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. And they were like both active buildings at the same time. So children definitely like
Saw that for decades.
whoa. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so because I think about all the times I was not paying attention in class and just staring out the window. Can you imagine if that's what you have to fucking look at?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, some say that this was done on purpose in order to scare straight these children.
You know, I feel like for that time period, it was perfect, like perfect planning in terms of like child
Right?
development. It was like this is the latest and greatest thing we've ever fucking done to make sure children are stable and not at all unhinged when they get
Let's
older.
just compound their trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like for the time, someone could have like pitched that idea and they'd be like, you know what? Why hasn't anyone thought of that before?
Right.
Genius.
But, well, literally, they were like, well, this is great. They're going to learn to not become criminals.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, that's definitely not how that works. But okay, fine.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Call Freud. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not their fault that they're orphans.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh my God. I totally forgot that they were also orphans. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just.
It's rough.
Yeah. It's all bad. Okay.
Yeah.
They have no one. They don't even have parents to like talk to about it later.
Nope. It's real bad.
Wow.
So the old jail operated from, I saw 1802, I saw 1803, whatever, until 1939 when it was shut down for its inhumane and unsanitary conditions. And so you know it's bad.
Like 140 years of them keeping it open, though, despite the inhumane conditions, means that there's 140 years of people that were certainly suffering.
Oh, we will get to it, the conditions. And yeah, imagine how bad it had to have been for a jail in the Deep South in the 1930s to get shut down because of the conditions.
Yeah, it had to have been. I can't even think of how bad the conditions had to have been.
Right.
I'm trying to think of like the worst thing that could have happened. I'm sure it's actually worse than that. So.
Yeah. So it is estimated that over its 137-year history, between 10 and 20,000 prisoners died in the jail.
10 to 20,000? Absolutely not. That's horrific. In 140 years, that feels like a massive percentage of the inmates. I feel like 20,000 is like the number of inmates I would think were there for 140 years.
Right.
And it sounds like almost all of them died.
Yes.
Wow.
So mostly, like the vast majority died due to disease and malnutrition, not due to like being executed. Some also due to like violence amongst the inmates who were like struggling to survive, and it's like squalid and like cutthroat, and there's like one very like Dickensian, like one fucking slice of bread and then people fighting over it.
Oh, okay.
Very scary.
Yeah.
So the few who actually made it to their execution dates were either like the lucky ones who got an execution date pretty quickly and they didn't have to be in the jail for that long, and then they
and like how sad is it that makes you lucky, because at least you're put out of the misery.
Right? Or these were definitely like the strongest and healthiest of the bunch, the fact that they were able to survive in the jail long enough to make it to their execution date. Usually they'd be sentenced, but they'd die way before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Holy crap. Do we know how many people actually were executed on the property?
I couldn't find that number, but I'm probably historians somewhere have estimates.
Okay.
But I didn't read that anywhere. So overcrowding was one of the biggest issues at the facility, which was originally built to house 130 prisoners.
Okay, I feel like the number's about to like triple itself or something.
But often had 3 or 4 times that many at any one time. And also they're dying so quickly, so they're like rapidly cycling through.
Oh, yeah, well, it seems like there's always a vacancy, even though it's like beyond overstocked with people.
Right.
Like, Wow. Okay.
Right. And it's not like they had beds or anything, like it's just...
Throw them in.
Yeah.
Ugh, okay.
So prisoners were organized according to the severity of their alleged crimes, with the most violent offenders kept on the highest floor because that was considered to be the most difficult area to attempt to escape from.
Okay.
On the second floor were petty criminals such as debtors or sex workers, and then on the ground floor were wealthy or white-collar so-called gentlemen prisoners.
Okay.
But, ironically, the hardened criminals on the top floor definitely had, like, comparatively the easiest living conditions because they had, like, fresher air up there. They could, like, catch a breeze.
Oh, okay.
And also because of, like, the design of the building and the total lack of sanitation, a lot of, like, sewage and other detritus was just seeping through those wooden floors onto the floors below and, like, the prisoners in floors below.
So they were just, like, sleeping in sewage, and also it was, like, what's the Deep South? So it's, like, hot and muggy and...
Mosquitoes, malaria.
I'm sure there's no ventilation, so they're just breathing in hot air and poo.
They're cooking in poo.
Jeez. Okay, so yeah, you kind of just hope that you're a hardened criminal if you're being categorized out of those.
Right. And allegedly some people on the lower floor would try to kill a fellow prisoner to be moved to the top floor.
Oh, I mean, I don't blame them, which is a fucked up thing to say, but, like, if the mentality of the time is...
I'm not getting out of here.
Yeah, like... I mean, it's horrible, and I don't condone murder, but also, like, I understand the
being
the
brought to that point by these horrible conditions.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the ground floor prisoners were much more likely to catch diseases like cholera or dysentery, and then parts of the ground floor also had dirt floors or, like, patches of dirt floor, and so prisoners were more likely to catch worms or other parasites from, like, walking around barefoot.
Oh my God.
It was bad. You didn't want to be on the ground floor.
Wow. I wonder, I doubt this number even exists, but it would be interesting if you could see the percentages of death per floor.
Also, just, like, the smell must have been unimaginable. I just can't even fucking imagine how horrible it would be.
Yeah. And also to be overcrowded by so many people, and
So it sounds like there wasn't like a lot of physical torture necessarily, because, like, the jailers didn't want to even go near the prisoners.
Sure, just the conditions were so horrible.
It was just the conditions were so horrible that was torture enough.
This feels like a jail that probably doesn't have, like, sanitation under control with, like, plumbing or, like... Yeah. I feel like they're not washing their hands. I mean, they've got parasites on their feet and they're swimming in poo.
Oh, it's just buckets and floor and...
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, so no wonder this place is haunted. There's just thousands upon thousands of pissed off ghosts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Horrifyingly, not only were convicted criminals housed in the jail, which still wouldn't be okay, but, you know, that's what you think of when you think of, like, a prison, is, like, people who have been convicted of crimes and they're awaiting their sentences, or their sentences are being carried out. But along with those, there were also those awaiting trial who had been denied bail, so, you know, technically still innocent until proven guilty. Right. They were just thrown right in there at the same time. And also key witnesses to crimes that the authorities wanted to keep an eye on before trial so they wouldn't disappear, so that they could be compelled to testify. They made witnesses stay there.
Fuck that. Oh my God. Also, so if witnesses stayed there and then couldn't they have left and complained out, like, to the small government or something and been like, hey, why are these conditions so horrible?
I mean, I think people knew.
They just didn't care.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I would bet. I mean, talk about an incentive to not testify.
Right. Are you kidding me? Of course.
Wouldn't you just be like, I didn't see shit?
Yeah, I know nothing. I see nothing. I found nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the old jail housed a vast array of prisoners in its time, including enslaved people who had attempted to escape or revolt against their enslavers. And the most famous of these was a formerly enslaved and later free carpenter named Denmark Vesey. So definitely check him out. He's a very interesting character.
Oh, okay. Denmark Vesey.
Mm-hmm. Also Civil War Union prisoners of war and also Confederate deserters and even pirates.
Oh, okay. So just the whole gang's here.
Just
a
anybody.
Real island of misfits. Okay. Wow.
Right. So we don't have time to get into all those interesting cases and all the prisoners and the hauntings. So I want to focus on one in particular.
Mm-hmm. Miss Lavinia.
Miss Lavinia.
I love her story. She's so fun.
Oh, okay. Well, chime in because you probably know more about it than I do. But
I only know the Ghost Adventures. I only remember the Ghost Adventures information where she showed up as a spectral figure to Zach Bagans. So,
well, there you go. So that's the part that I got into, like, her story, but I didn't get into, like, the alleged specifics of the hauntings because I don't know about that stuff as much. So
sure.
Okay, I know that she's been supposedly spotted wandering the halls of the jail in a long white dress, but a long white dress is not period appropriate from when she was there. So
fair enough. And also, I will tell you, after doing like 250 episodes, every fucking building has a woman in a white dress or a red dress. It's always white or red. And I don't know why. So it could be anyone. It could be the same ghost at every other location I've ever covered, just making a pit stop for the year.
Right. She gets around. So, Lavinia Fisher, Fisher's her married name, we don't know her maiden name, was born in 1793, which was actually the same year that the cotton gin was invented, and then enslavement, really took off in the South. Neither here nor there.
Okay. The first half of that, I almost went, fun, and then you brought up enslaved people. So
well, here's the thing. The way we were taught history, we're taught that, the cotton gin is, one of the best inventions, and it's such a good thing. But actually, the invention of the cotton gin led to cotton becoming a huge industry, led to an increase in enslavement.
Oh. I don't know why that would have never...
I never put that together either.
How as a nation did none of us have that click on its own?
Right? I thought it was the opposite. I thought, they invented the cotton gin and it took fewer people.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It was now we didn't have to worry about enslaving people because there was a machine that could handle cotton. Okay.
No, opposite. Isn't that wild?
Wow, that's a real bummer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely taught poorly in our schools. Anyway, okay. So, we know she lived most, if not all, of her life in the Charleston, South Carolina area, but very little else is known about her early years or upbringing. She was known to be, quote, strikingly beautiful.
Okay.
And there are many posthumous portraits of her that have been painted, although their accuracy is impossible to assess. Mm-hmm. At some point, she met and married John Fisher, and the couple went on to own and operate 2 roadside inns, the 5 Mile Wayfarer House, and later the 6 Mile Wayfarer House.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Each was named thus due to its respective distance outside of Charleston, making them ideal spots for travelers to stop over on their way into the city.
Okay.
And at this point in time, Charleston was one of the largest cities in the U.S., and it was one of the biggest hubs for the transatlantic slave trade. So it was poppin'.
Got it. Okay.
So there are presumably lots of anonymous business travelers, lots of people coming and going, lots of money changing hands. People coming into the town would presumably have a lot of cash on them if they were going to, buy enslaved people or do other kinds of trade. So, yeah, we've got an H.H. Holmes almost thing going on, right?
I see.
So then travelers started to go missing, and wild rumors began to spread. As one story goes, the stunning Lavinia would entice lone travelers to the inn, question them about their business, so, try to figure out if they had money.
How much money they had, okay.
Right? And their family.
Oh,
like,
if anyone knew where they were, is anyone looking for you?
right? Would anybody notice if you went missing
Mm-hmm.
or know where you went missing? Before plying the poor fool with a special tea concoction that would cause them to sleep soundly for several hours.
Ooh, okay. I think I know what happens next, but I want to hear you say it.
So during this time, John and Lavinia would rob them, and then, as one more fantastic story goes, pull a lever
This is it, yes.
that would cause the floor under the bed to open up, and then they would drop down onto be like impaled on a pit of stakes and spikes.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way that happened.
I like to believe that one just for its fantastical features, but I feel like how would you get away with building that? How would you know what I mean?
It's expensive to build. Beds are expensive. How many beds are you going through? You're going to have a new bed every time?
Maybe I imagine that the bed is actually drilled into the floor or something, so it stays with the floor, and you slide out of the bed.
Oh, like a tilt slide, like a Wallace and Gromit.
Yes, you get it. Or maybe the bed falls through in the middle, so you just drops you. Maybe the bed itself is the trap door, and you just
there's not a mattress. There's hay or something.
Something's happening. I don't know. I honestly have never built a murder trapdoor before, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. But maybe we should ask Amanda. I feel like she would know.
She doesn't have an engineering brain, but she could come up with some ideas for sure.
I think she definitely has the chutzpah. She's got the moxie.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so this part of the story I think is almost certainly made up, and it's much more likely that if anyone was actually killed by the couple, they did so just because the person was sleeping and they just
sure,
stabbed them or whatever, killed them somehow.
A less difficult, complex way, yeah.
Right, just a little simpler way to kill travelers. So, what is known, and there were references to this in newspaper articles from the time period, is that John and Lavinia Fisher were in cahoots with a larger gang of highwaymen, and they would help identify easy targets for their robberies or muggings, and pass on information to the highwaymen who would do more of the robbery.
Gotcha.
And then the inn also was a good hideout for the outlaws. If the heat was on them or whatever.
Gotcha.
And by February 1819, folks in the area had had enough. So after numerous complaints made to the local sheriff about guests disappearing at the 6 Mile Wayfarer house were ignored or they were dropped due to lack of evidence, a band of local townsfolk turned vigilante and they went after the Fishers.
Oh, okay.
I didn't read much about the attack itself by the vigilantes, but they I don't know if they fucked up the inn or they just roughed them up a little bit. They didn't kill them, but they roughed them up.
Okay.
After the attack, the vigilante group assigned one guy, David Ross, to remain near the inn to stand watch until morning, presumably when they would get more help or police would come or something.
Sure, okay.
Not a fun job to be
the
lone vigilante standing.
Right. Can you imagine
the vigilanto?
All the vigilantes are okay, we got to get home for dinner, but you stand guard. I feel like he was the one that wasn't married with kids.
Yes.
And they were this is your task now.
1,000%, because every report is young David Ross.
Right. Young spinster David, yes.
Yeah. Poor guy. So anyway, during the night, 2 of the highwaymen gang members counterattacked, and Ross would later claim that Lavinia was among them, and he saw her and was oh, a woman, she's going to help me, or tried to appeal to her womanly empathy, but she just viciously joined in the violence and choked him and smashed his head through a window.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, duh. Like at the same, like if this woman
He had
is
gone
just,
after her.
yeah, and also if this woman is actually killing people, like why on earth do you think she wouldn't kill you?
Right? Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like me standing guard in front of like Jeffrey Dahmer's house for a night. It's like, what do I think's gonna happen? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be alive by the next day. That's for sure.
So somehow David Ross managed to get away. I don't know how, because he was super outnumbered. And told the authorities about his ordeal, but not before another unsuspecting visitor came to the Fishers' door. A man named John Peoples. Peeples.
Okay.
Peoples.
Little peepers.
Little peepers. So according to legend, Peoples was not fond of tea.
Oh.
But not wishing to be rude and refuse it when the innkeeper's wife so kindly offered him some, he instead dumped the tea surreptitiously when Lavinia wasn't looking and didn't drink it.
Interesting. So he ended up not getting drugged. I see. I see.
Didn't get drowsy, wasn't roofied. So Peoples managed to pick up on Lavinia's sketchiness when she was chatting with him about his business, and like presumably, the other people would already be kind of looped,
right?
And would tell her more,
right?
And this guy was like, "Why are you asking me so many questions?"
Yeah. Finally, someone a little more reserved was on high alert, being like, "Don't ask me about that."
Yeah, like it's kind of none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of got wise to this, but also it's like the middle of the night. He's miles from the city. He can't just like leave. I'm assuming, he's either waiting for like a stagecoach or like his horse needs to be watered and rested.
Whatever the version of like meeting somebody, yeah, when I think of
his
like a
Tesla had to recharge.
I was going to say, like, when I think of like the stagecoach coming in the morning, you can't just text your stagecoach and be like, never mind, meet me somewhere else,
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, like, she's creepy. This is weird. I got to make it through the night. So he went up to his room, pretended like everything was fine, and chose to sleep sitting up in a chair next to the door.
Smart.
Rather than in the bed.
Smart.
And so he awoke in the night, different stories. Some say like the bed opened up and he wasn't in it. Some say there was, maybe one of them approached him or like tried to get into the room to kill him, whatever. He woke up, figured out it's bad news, and flees on foot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So now with 2 living witnesses to their crimes, Charleston law enforcement were finally able to arrest Lavinia and John Fisher.
Wow.
So
how long did that take? Do we know the time period, the time limit?
Like how long they owned the inn and...
Yeah, how long had they been killing people without getting caught until...
I don't know exactly. Sounds like a couple years.
A while, okay.
Yeah. So John tried to strike a plea deal and like he gave up the names of a few of the highwaymen and he tried to like strike a deal to get Lavinia off.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end it didn't work and they were both sent to the Old Charleston Jail to await trial.
Okay.
They were housed together for over a year.
Whoa.
In one 6-by-8 foot cell.
Oh my God. 6-by-8 foot cell?
I'm assuming other people lived in there too because it was so overcrowded.
I was like, did they have like a marriage like a
wedded cell?
The
honeymoon suite.
You know how like in college like married couples get to like
dorm
together?
Housing. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like that's what this was, but maybe not because there's other people. By the way, if the person I love, we didn't commit crimes, if we had to be in a 6-by-8 space together for a year, I would become a murderer. I think she'd become a murderer first.
Right.
But and then add other people into that space. I mean, that alone is crazy making. So.
Right. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. But their romance endured, it sounds like. So they're on the top floor, at least.
Okay.
Because they were murderers, or alleged murderers.
Sure.
So at trial, both were found guilty of highway robbery, but not of murder or attempted murder. So all the murder stuff is alleged still.
Right. Uh-huh.
But they were granted the chance to appeal the verdict, which was also pretty rare for the time. Most people didn't get an appeal. It was like...
Was it because she was a woman or something?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So during the interim before their second trial, the couple attempted to escape by like tying together bed sheets and forming a rope, like real old-timey.
Like Rapunzel.
Yeah. From the top floor.
They just rappelled down.
Right. That was the plan. And so John, it worked. John got out down the rope. But it broke while Lavinia was still inside the cell.
Oh, shit.
And her loving husband wouldn't abandon her. So even though he was out of the building, he allowed himself to be recaptured and brought back.
Okay, but, like, that's a man. Like, I know he's a murderer. Like, I know he's a murderer, but, like, that's true love as far as I'm concerned.
Right? I mean,
that's the man you want to marry and, like, get in trouble with the law with, I think.
Right? I mean, that's pretty amazing. I feel like I would be like, Zach, at least one of us can make it.
I'd be like, Allison, I'm so glad that you love me enough that you want me to go live a free life.
Exactly. I'll honor you. Bye.
Yeah, you're with me right here, always.
1,000%. So... after their escape attempt, their living conditions inside the jail were made even worse, and there was, like, tighter security, and it probably was like, oh, God, why did we even try? Mm-hmm. So then John found Jesus in jail. He, like, he met with the pastor a lot, or the reverend, or whatever, I don't know. Tried to ask for forgiveness, but Lavinia had the opposite reaction, and she just, like, hunkered down and became, quote, more vitriolic.
Oh, like so anti-Jesus?
Just like, fuck everybody, fuck all y'all, this is bullshit, whatever.
Okay.
So she seemed to be in shock that she wasn't pardoned, and she really didn't believe until the very end that the sentence was actually going to be carried out. She thought she was going to be pardoned last minute.
Oh, okay.
She was not. But I guess, in the end, she wasn't technically hanged. Because rather than let the hangman push her off the gallows, like,
sure,
once the noose was around her neck, she, a second before she could be pushed, jumped.
Oh.
She just was like...
she went, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
I kind of love the taking the power away from them.
Right?
You know? Of like, oh, like, I'm not even going to give you the satisfaction of killing me.
Right. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And then this is my last little bit, and the thing that, you know, it's probably apocryphal, who knows, but, like, let's pretend it's real.
Okay.
Her final words, exclaimed before the crowd of onlookers just moments before her death, were, "If any of you have a message for the devil, tell me now, for I shall be seeing him shortly." And then she jumped.
I know she was not a good person, but that's also a badass way to go.
It's fucking badass.
I do remember that part of it because when Zach Bagans goes to the jail and tries to talk to Lavinia Fisher, he is able to get audio of her finishing the sentence because he started her final words and then was like, what were the last words to that? And she was able to say the devil and, you know, all this stuff. So,
ooh, okay.
Fun stuff.
So anyway, I didn't know any of that stuff. I thought it was such a creepy, amazing place.
Well, I will tell you that that place is also full of ghosts. So, I thank you for covering Lavinia. I think I actually might have covered that story before, but I definitely did not go into that kind of depth with Lavinia Fisher. I think she was just kind of like a bullet on the notes. So, thank you for giving like such a full in-depth version of that story because I did not know half of that. So,
well,
that's
good.
awesome.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And is there anything you want to shout out for Wine and Crime while you're here, by the way?
If you like true crime and comedy, which if you're listening to this, you probably do, check out Wine and Crime. We are at Wine and Crime Pod on most social medias, but I don't think we have a TikTok. We're in our mid-30s, so we're not there yet.
We don't have a TikTok either, by the way. I have a personal one, but I'm like, I don't know about the podcast one.
I watch them, but I don't know how to make them. But anyway, Wine and Crime Pod, wineandcrimepodcast.com is the website.
Yeah. Do you have are you guys going back on tour soon?
That's the plan. So you said this will come out probably in January. So we don't have details yet, but supposedly we will be starting up live touring again maybe in January. Fingers crossed.
That'd be fun. Well, if you come back to LA, I want to obviously
1,000%.
Last time you had a show in LA, we ended up having a sleepover, right?
We did. And you did like a, how am I blanking? A scavenger hunt in the green room and like around the venue for us. You set that up.
I surprised Wine and Crime with a scavenger hunt after their... Mm-hmm. Well, I don't remember how I made that happen. You were doing your meet and greet, and so I was alone in the green room, and I made like a whole thing. Thank you for mentioning that. I completely forgot. I will make another one for you if you come to LA, so let that be your... but thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's as someone who... I know what it's like to do all the research and build notes out, and it was a big ask to have you come on and
happy to
story.
Do it.
So we owe you for sure. Come back next week for more Wine and Crime. I don't know which of the two lovely ladies will be here, but someone will be here, and we'll keep going with our Missing Christine tour, I guess is what we're calling it now. So,
I know. We love you, Christine. We're trying our best to fill your shoes, but it's not possible.
The way we usually end this is we say, and that's why we drink, but word for word. So I say, and you go, that's why we drink.
Okay, I'm going to try.
Okay. Honestly, it's never been done in a classy way. So the more butchered it is, the
better.
The more authentic it sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
why
we
drink.